All right, it's about 6:07 this evening on Tuesday, January the 14th, and we'll call to order this meeting of the Murphysboro City Council. As usual, I'd ask that we would all rise, and I would ask our Lady Hughes to lead us in an invocation, please.
Gracious and loving God, we come together once again to further our endeavor to make this community a better place to live. We thank you for your continued guidance, and we pray that it is helping us make a difference. We pray that our hearts are filled with your spirit and that our faith is strengthened through that spirit. We ask these things in your name.
Amen. Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes.
I got the battery in my hearing too. That's good.
All right. Deputy Clerk Ripley, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Hughes.
Yes.
Alderman Ferguson. Here. Alderman Brown. Alderman Pearson.
Here.
Alderman McComb.
Here.
Alderman Urbis.
Here.
Alderman Bratton.
Here.
Alderman Ashton.
Here.
Alderman Campos. Here. Alderman Pittman. Here.
Mayor who? Here. All right, well, that takes us into our agenda items this evening. Up first, we have the consideration of council minutes from December the 17th, 2019. And I entertain any questions or amendments to the minutes at this time. We have a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Up next, we have the consideration of accounts payable, accounts receivable, and payroll registers. I believe we have at least two, maybe 3 accounts payable registers. And so we entertain questions on those at this time.
I have a couple.
I have a couple of what is benefit planning consultants?
Ms. Ripley?
What page? and where
Page
you at?
1.
Page 1 on 833.
Oh, okay.
That's the company that now administers our health reimbursement account. It used to be Payflex, now it's BBC. Yes.
All right, Ms. Did you have another bill? or
Yeah,
something?
go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish it.
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, and on that same register, on, page 3, and it's actually up for, Chief McBride, the EMR-based vests, that's what we are now, are those what we're using for the EMR calls, or?
Yes,
Okay, and, go ahead.
no, that's fine.
And, are those something we never have had before?
That's a replacement for the ones that, they were getting worn.
Okay,
Yeah,
and.
that was out of the
actually, I have-
EMR capital line.
Okay, I have several things for you, actually.
Okay.
You know, I know that last time we purchased some, iPads for, and that came out of last year's budget, but now then, are all these things like the Apple Pencil at $97, the pencil case and all that, for those iPads?
That's
that you
correct,
just got?
yes, that enables us to use the new software to, do our diagrams and everything correctly
Okay,
on the
are we
software.
done with that stuff yet?
Yes, that is all.
Okay, thank you. The other thing is, that one's little, I'm getting there, we have too many registers. I don't know, your name just came up a lot on these.
That's fine.
So just stay right there.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that the medical gloves are also for the EMR.
Yeah, that's an ongoing expense,
Yeah,
as we have calls.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
And, the, there is something that I'm really, on page, this is 844 4, page 4, emergency reporting setup description. I know that came out of Brian's, account, the IT account, but can you tell me what that is?
The emergency reporting is the new software for the fire department. It is taking over our report writing, pre-planning, calendar, scheduling, logbook, rig checks, all the functions that we did before on different pieces of paper and everything else. This is software that takes care of everything that we do.
Oh, do you think we're done with that also?
Yes, that's the first year, then,
Yeah, oh, I
then on
understand
it's
that. That
less,
was
yes.
set up, yeah, okay, but we have the actual software
Yes,
now.
it's up and running.
Okay,
Barb, can I just jump in on that? and
Yeah.
Ask a question quickly. I assume that that purchase was made in coordination with Mr. Van Waring and?
Yes, it was. That was something we
I
discussed.
understand that.
I'm sorry.
We discussed that at budget time and adjusted the line item for that. So
Okay.
that
We
was
went from
something.
16 to 21,000, I think, for some of that, on Brian's line item.
Thank you for that reminder.
And, okay, Henry Printing, we have donations to cover that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Leslie, you gave us 2 minutes.
It was the end of the fiscal year, that is why there's extras.
The, on page 10, the Sentinel Emergency Solutions, I know that these are required, type tests. How
Oh,
often
the
we have to
pump
do those?
testing?
Yeah, how often we have to do those?
Once a year.
Okay, so that'll be it for this year.
That's, yeah, that was
Or was
on,
that for last?
that was on last
All
budget
right,
year,
so,
yes.
but we might not get that until,
Yeah, it'd be the
next
end of
year.
this year, yes.
okay. I think that's all I have. Thank you for your help.
Any other questions on the accounts payable, accounts receivable, or payroll register? Mr. Purvis?
I guess more of an observation, but on register 833, on page 2 and 3, on the bank card, several battery purchases. I was on a PLP the other day and was reminded of a great number of batteries that they have, large and small, and I know we did buy some things from them, but, you know, if possible, then we
Where are
should
you,
like to
John?
see.
I'm sorry.
Page
Page
3
2
and 4,
Yeah, 3 and 4.
Okay,
register 833.
yeah, okay, thanks.
Just, if at all possible, if we can use the local vendor like PLP,
Yeah, we always get our batteries from PLP. This was a charger for a camera, a specific charger, but we get all the batteries from them.
And they do have lots of battery related things, so just to know that.
I would also note, we don't often look at the money coming in, but on the report here, page 1, the receipts summary, I just wanted to once again thank, you can see under all of those bus tickets, which were income from various residents who went on the trip for the playoff football game, that there were a number of sponsors there. Reed Heller, First Bank, Blankenship, Jackson County Abstract, and they've all paid, and I just thank them for those sponsorships, and they brought to mind, because we got a nice thank you card dropped off here from Coach Gary Carter that said, thank you for feeding our football team and all of your great support throughout the football season, so figured that'd be an idea to get that in the minutes at this time and pose for a photo for the Murphysboro Times. All right. Anything else on the bills? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I would like to ask the council this evening if they would mind amending the agenda in order to go to, and I spoke with Ms. Hughes about this in advance of the meeting, to go to personnel first. I know that there are a few people here in the audience that may want to add their voice, pro or con, to the discussion regarding the full-time mayor, and out of respect for their time, I thought it would be good to have that conversation first, and so if they wish to go home and take care of the dog, or whatever it might be. Mr. McCollum.
Well, we'll
This probably shouldn't even been on the agenda until we had an executive session to discuss this with all the council members before we put it out and talk to you, before this was ever put on the agenda.
All
We'll
right.
just get the discussion with all the council members, how they feel, and we present this to the public.
So it'd be your request that we essentially have this discussion in executive session instead
Yeah,
of?
and then put it back on, so we get everybody's opinion. We got all 10 here tonight. We could get everybody's opinion on the council
Okay,
before we present it to the public.
all right, I saw Ms. Hughes.
There is a proposal that I actually was going to present to the council for discussion, if you would want to listen to that before we just decide about whether to go to executive on that, if that's okay with everyone.
Well,
I mean, I
If it's
have,
not, that's fine too, but.
I did not think about this as being something that really had to be talked about in an executive session. I don't know why I didn't think that would be a request, it's just not,
Well, then you would have everybody's opinion if it's gonna pass or it's not gonna pass. You know,
I think
well, and that's all right with me.
I think that's going a little further than we really need to go right now, even. It's all come to all of our attention that mayor is not running for, Terry Grimes', position. And, before we present it to the whole council and discuss it as a whole council, I'd like to see a committee of personnel chair and 3 other people from this council, to research things like, with Scott and or Sandra, research things like financial feasibility, how are we gonna pay for it? Things like the legality of changing the job description of the mayor, because I'm sorry, I'm not gonna pay you that amount of money that we probably would pay a full-time mayor with a job description that's this big that says you run the council meetings, and if that was all you did, that's one thing, but we know it isn't. I mean, that needs to be looked at whether we make you a full-time mayor or not, personally. So really, before we present this to whole council, and I want all your input, believe me, I'd like to set up a committee to look at some of the legalities. We're probably gonna need Ed, for some information also, to look at some of those things. And then, any questions you have, any questions you want the committee to research, any input that you have, the committee that does this would want all that, then we bring it back. And we cuss and discuss it and go from there, rather than going immediately to executive council and nobody's had the thought process over 15 minutes to really decide what they wanna do.
Sure. Mr. Pearson?
Well, I agree with Barb, we talked about this earlier. In fact, I was the one to put it on the agenda, and had no idea that it could be an executive session thing. But even at that, there's no reason why we can't, within reason, listen to a few people.
Oh, I want to hear them, yeah.
Tonight.
I mean,
In my
that's,
opinion.
Sure.
And
that is part of
And
this committee,
I-
is listening to them.
It just a
This
point
is
of
a
order.
very
real-
serious, this is a very big step for our town,
Certainly.
whether we go with it or we go some other way. And we can't,
And just as a point
I
of
need
order.
leadership in this, I need some people to tell me what they think, and I haven't formed an opinion yet, so.
Did we
I
ever,
think we should hear from, within reason, a few people that are here.
did we ever formally open the personnel committee? I know that Sandra, did you show us as going into, okay, I just wanted to make sure of that so that we don't necessarily come back to this as a
Yeah,
point
you
of order
want
later.
to,
Okay, all right. Other comments, questions from anyone on the council? Mr. Urbis?
Well, I think Barb's suggestion is a good idea. I think, Ed, didn't you say that when we talked about this before, that anything that we would do couldn't take effect until the next mayor?
And for this to be effective for the next term, it has to be completed 180 days before that election. So
I think you,
we're well out in front of it.
Yeah,
But
but
you
if
know,
we pill around.
180 days is half a year.
That goes real quick.
That election will be in April, I
And
think.
they told us to.
think
I
it's
just want
14 months
particularly
out.
the public to understand that this is not something that can happen tomorrow even.
That is
if we
correct.
wanted to.
Right.
When you and I first had a conversation about it, it's been several months ago, you and I talked about that, and were you guys able to look into some other towns at that point? Do we have an idea of if we decide to go different directions, that we could kind of keep that time span short?
Richard has done some looking, he's gathered material from
Perhaps you
Carbondale,
could
Marion.
share that with us then.
Yeah, so we do have some material on that.
That's
We've
good.
not studied the material, we've just been gathering.
Okay. Well, shall we set that committee and then we'll let public do public comment? You know, if you want to address the council, if you'll stand, say your name, tell us what you want to tell us or ask us or whatever. Try to hold yourself to 3 or 4 minutes instead of a 15-minute dissertation, okay? We're here a long time anyway. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
All right. I would, as personnel chair, I would like to be on that committee. I don't know if anybody is just like chomping at the jaws to be on this, but my personal opinion is, and you guys could say, no, I don't want that, or whatever, but I would like John's help. 2 reasons. One, he is mayor pro tem, and 2, he is an attorney and can research some things for us. And he doesn't charge us what it does. although he might after this. Does that work for you, Ed? Thank you, John. I also would like WJ, if at all possible, because of his financial background. And you'll love this one, because he put it on my agenda. Mr. Bill, Alderman Pearson, would you consider doing that also? And is anyone chomping at the bit to be on
You
that
say
committee
3 people,
otherwise?
and we stick to your word. We don't wanna interfere.
But
So we expect a good report to come back from you.
we want to report, and that's why we want to
Right,
do this.
I understand. I
That's the
appreciate
whole,
that.
that's the whole reason behind it, Alderman. I want from all of you input, though.
Yep.
You have questions, you have concerns, we all do. Questions, concerns, input on, this is what I would like to see, and then we can research if that's feasible. Does that make sense to all of you? All right, let's go from there, and shall we turn it over to, go ahead.
And Barbara, I was just to say, once you do that, if you would give us a deadline when you want our questions or concerns or issues
I-
sent into you,
Well, I
as
would
chairman,
like,
let us know.
you know, probably, well, John and WJ probably have the most rigid schedule. What time do you usually get off, sir?
Depends on the day.
Okay, It's-
Mondays and Tuesdays, I'm not off at 4.
okay, so,
We did next Monday or Tuesday.
John, do Mondays ever work for you? Is that a bad day?
Not necessarily.
Shall we set a meeting that we can put together some thoughts? And then we'll come back to council and say, okay, we've met once and now we need you. Let me get a calendar here, I'm sorry. Bill, do you have anything, you're on vacation anytime soon? Where,
I mean, I know that you all are usually here at the council meetings, so if you wanted to just meet in an hour in
Earlier.
advance of, or 2 of the
that
next
would be
council
the
meetings.
21st, correct?
28th.
I mean, the 28th. Let me see if I got
I would
it.
like to meet, if we're gonna meet possibly before the next, it's a little bit before the next meeting, so that if something comes out of that
Then
committee
we-
meeting
that
that
would
we
be
need to
good.
research, we have time to do that before then in the next council meeting.
Well, I
don't
wouldn't
wanna just-
expect we'd have any action. at
I
the
don't
next
think we'll have any
meeting,
action
so-
before
We
the
could have
next
some
one.
information, and I'd like to have as much as possible.
Well,
We'll have to meet tomorrow if
This
you
out
want.
for
I can't do it tomorrow,
15
sorry.
years.
We could do the 20th or the 27th, or if you want to meet on that council day, you guys kind of tell me what you want, and I'll
We
put
can
it
get
on my
together
schedule.
sometime after tonight and figure out.
I think it would be better to have it a couple of days before the council, so we get everything.
Well, if we did it this coming Monday, the 20th, that would give us a whole week to get some things together.
That's okay with me.
Do the 20th. John, 20th. Okay?
Yeah.
at, let's meet, you wanna meet here or at admin? Actually, admin will be closed on Monday at late,
Yeah.
let's meet here.
Because
Um,
that
was Monday.
Monday's.
Monday's a holiday.
Oh, that is a holiday, isn't it?
Good, let's take all.
Oh, okay, so then, actually the 27th, let's just meet then and we'll get as much together as we can and get input from them and then we'll go from there. Yeah, the 27th.
Alderman Hughes,
And what time do you get off?
I could be there by 4:30.
Okay, John, you can be there by 4:30? Okay, let's do that. Now I'd like to turn it over to, anyone that would like to address the council. And I don't care how you go about this, you can do first come, first serve, you can like, whoever wants to jump up, go ahead. If you're here to address stuff, yes. Thank you.
Hi, Kyle Fager, local business owner.
Yes.
Me and my wife own and operate Bruce Brothers Tap Room, Kilby's Barbecue, K. Fager Contracting, Fager Rental Properties, Lester Wild Farms, and I think that's it for now. Well, we've been growing businesses in this town since 2010, and we've worked very smoothly with Will, and I appreciate everything he does for everyone, and we continue to keep doing more, so I hope that you guys consider making him a full-time mayor.
Zoe?
Thank you, Ms. Hughes. I want to thank each of you for the skill and institutional knowledge you bring here, and you serve generously of your time and talent. Most of us in the city don't really pay attention to what you do until we have a beef and we complain a lot. The morale in this town has never been greater in the 35 years I've been here. Didn't grow up here. My jerseys and my school colors are red and white, not red and yellow, but there's a significant difference. Sydney Appleton was embracing and warm and loving. There was a little bit of a spell where I didn't really know if anybody paid attention to Walnut Street. Will has turned that around. I think everyone sees that. I think it would be a great loss to this city if we lost him as our mayor by trying to keep a lid on a budget. So maybe you could be creative about shuffling funds from other areas that are maybe earmarked for regional development that could beef up his salary. Grant money pursuit, I really don't know the ins and outs of the city, but I don't know who is looking for grant money. There is so much grant money. Will has done a lot. We've got the sidewalks, walkability program, and I know every now and then I talk to Joe and he says, oh yeah, we're already working on that with the mayor. I know we are working on a long-term project for Longfellow Park. If you don't have anybody who's already looking into grant funding, I think just having a mayor who will spend 10 hours a week looking into grant funding could probably double the salary increase. Also, having an executive member of an organization like this will help keep an eye on trends and patterns for other departments and other expenditures. Is there any way that Mr. Stevens could be compensated for the type of services he would like to be able to provide, or is he barred by city policy from receiving compensation from the city? I throw that out as maybe a question. Could he be compensated on a contract basis or a side basis? Cannot be compensated for anything?
That you can't, he cannot, his compensation cannot change during his term.
He can't.
And
He can't
if
be
you're gonna change, and he cannot be an elected mayor and also a contractual,
a vendor.
a vendor or an employee.
Okay, that answers that question. I think that if we would take the risk as a community of losing a great asset by trying to save $20,000 or $30,000. I know the executive director of many not-for-profits making the range of $45,000. He's a bright young man. He's got a great future. We're lucky to have him in this city. And I would urge everybody to look top to bottom on this budget. Is there any money that you're not getting the bang for your buck that you could divert to that while we have the pleasure of working with him? There is a big difference in this town because of Mr. Stevens. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
I'm Rachel Enster, and I own the Murphysboro School of Art and the RME Art Studio and Gallery, and we do some National Register stuff around. I noticed a remarkable change and difference in our town after Mayor Williams was elected the first time. We seem to have businesses wanting almost immediately to come to town. And that was wonderful, you know, because now on Walnut Street, we've got all these charming places, the kind of things that have the ambiance that when you travel, you want to go see those things, right? You want to see cute shops and bow tie shops and that kind of stuff. And so I think those are directly connected to the mayor's demeanor and approach of new ideas. And so I just really support, number one, I support the mayoral position for Murphysboro being full-time, because I think that's gonna add another level of respect to our city government and to our town. I'm not saying it's not respectful, I'm just saying we're growing and maturing, and I think that might be a good point. Also, I particularly think that Mayor Williams has done a great job, or Stevens, excuse me, has done a great job. It must be my 70 years of age, I'll blame it on that. And so I'm very supportive of the things that he's done, and I hope that you really consider this. I am concerned about the timeline, so I would really like to know about that timeline when this stuff has to be put to bed in order to meet that 6-month qualifier. Okay? Thank you.
Serapé? Not right now. Serapé's daughter? Glad you're here. Does anyone have anything else? Yes, go ahead, thank you.
My name is Joe Fry, I'm the director for the Park District. Coming from another government agency, where we do have full-time leadership in myself, and knowing that the Park District didn't move to a full-time leadership until the director prior to me in '99, I don't know how the Park District would accomplish things that we do with a part-time person. I don't know how they accomplish everything that they accomplished prior to '99 with just a part-time person. I think volunteers were a lot more available and things like that then. But in this day and age, when you're talking about a government agency, full-time leadership, I think, is an important part of that. I think that Will has demonstrated an excellent ability to lead, and I'm sure that he's putting in considerably more than the part-time hours that he's doing now.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure with the full-time, it would be that and then more on top of that. But I think not only for Will as a person, continuing on in that role as a full-time person, but for as a city as a whole moving forward through the future, full-time leadership, I think, makes sense for a community, any community, and it will just make it better as a whole. I would expect, just so much more growth and everything else from someone who can commit 40 hours a week in the office doing stuff as opposed to 20 hours a week in the office doing stuff and 30 hours a week out shaking hands and kissing babies and all that stuff. So, thank you.
Thanks, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Molly Blue. I own Molly's Plant Brew Pub, and I also work a different job. And I know how hard it is working 2 different jobs at once and dedicating your time to one thing and then having to spend, your allotted time to several different things. If Mayor Stevens were able to dedicate all of his time to helping Murphysboro, I know we could do a lot more here. I'm also part of the Revitalize Murphysboro project, and I think we can help you with some of this job description.
Really? Anyone else? Any cons? I mean, those are cons. Any, those were pros. Any cons? Okay, also, I would like to tell the council that I believe the letter that was in front of you, if you haven't opened it yet, is something from Jamie Green, who was not able to be here tonight, for input on that, so please read that. If no one else has anything there, I don't have any further discussion unless there's some question you want to ask, sir.
No, I wouldn't add anything at this time. I would just say that, I think that it's fair that during this process, I would like to submit essentially my perspective on the issue, basically in writing.
I was gonna say, could you do that in writing?
Yes, for that to be considered that way as sort of a standalone perspective. Because this committee does not need to have me exerting my influence meeting to meeting. But it does need to have my sort of general perspective on why it's not necessarily just, you know, about Will Stevens, but why it's important for any mayor down the road to have the ability to work the job full-time, because essentially now I think that there are a lot of people who would be as good as me or much better than me as the mayor of this community that simply aren't even willing to consider it because they're, you know, currently employed at whatever middle-class rate that is, and they say to themselves, well, I just can't, few people have the job flexibility that I was given over the last 7 years to, you know, do these other things outside of that employment. So I'll detail those in a letter, and that'll probably be the extent, other than questions that the committee might have.
Okay, thank you. If you could have that to us by that 27th meeting, that would be very nice.
And on a more usual note regarding personnel, we had a very good meeting with the
I
firefighters.
was going to say that too, going back to old
Yes,
business.
a very good meeting with the bargaining unit from the firefighters
Yes.
last night, and I think that we should be able to come to some sort of agreement within the next few weeks, I think.
Yeah, I would hope that, I really hope that we could bring you something next meeting, to perhaps vote on with the firefighters. It was very productive, and we thank you for that.
I don't have anything else.
And if there's not any other public comment about anything else on personnel, we can get out of that, Mayor. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I had a question, not, under personnel, not related to the full-time mayors, under that. Where are we at on the other contract?
That's what we just said. We had a very, very productive meeting with the firefighters.
I know that, but I'm talking
And we
about.
have a meeting scheduled on next week with Public Works, the Uptown Public Works. We're all settled, of course, with the wastewater treatment plant. And, so.
What about clerical?
We have not, right now, we do not have another meeting scheduled with them, although we will soon.
Clerical is outstanding, but the
Yeah.
representative, I believe,
Yeah.
with Public Works is also the representative for
They're
clerical.
both the same.
And so whenever we have that meeting, we should be able to get together with him. I've been trying to schedule a meeting with him over the last month and a half.
I don't know if he spreads himself that thin or if he just doesn't always respond to things, but.
He had a house fire.
Oh, did he?
He lost
Oh,
his
I'm
home.
sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry about that.
Before Christmas.
Yeah, I am sorry about that.
So that might be a part of it.
Yeah, that's probably a good part of it, Leslie. Thank you for that information.
That's all I had.
Okay, yes, John.
I think Mark was waiting for a response from Charlie.
I'm sorry, Mark is waiting for a
Waiting for a
response.
response from Charlie for the.
Yes, although we do have a meeting scheduled, you know that, don't you?
When is it?
On the 20, hold on, I gotta find it, 23rd, I believe.
Okay.
Give a second, I'll tell you here.
I do remember that, I'm sorry. I have the email.
It's the 23rd at 5:30 here. And Russell, good luck for you to be here. Okay. Anything else under personnel, John?
The 21st too, would be right?
The 21st is with fire. Is that right?
I couldn't remember if it said 21st or 22nd.
It is the 21st.
It is the 21st, yes.
All right, I think that's everything under personnel. I appreciate the, yes, well, I think that we have called for public comment.
Yeah.
So, I believe we can come out of personnel. And I think any and all that joined us this evening, certainly
Thank you all for your input.
welcome to stick around for other things. If not, that's fine as well. All right, that takes us to our other committee and commission reports. Up first, we have Budget and Finance chaired by Mr. W.J. Pittman. W.J.?
Thank you, Mayor. I've got the easy job following that with no old business, no new business. Is there any public comment under budget and finance? No public comment, we can move out of budget and finance.
All right. That takes us to Building and Grounds chaired by Mr. Gary McComb. Gary?
No, there's no old business. The new business is, replacing the door at the youth center. Did you get bids on that?
I was able to track down, one bid from, glass company in, Marion, his name escapes me at the moment.
It's Marion Glass and Mirror.
Marion Glass and Mirror. Universal Glass, they got back to me today, came through to take a look at the doors about getting a quote on that as well. So at this point, we've got the one quote. I know I talked to, Mayor Stevens about it too, about, looking at an alternative, to replacing the front doors as well. We've been trying to find some of the quotes on that. About possibly, adding a door to the back of the building. It might be, more cost effective than replacing the front entry doors in a way that suits the youth and rec center's needs.
I know we just had the doors replaced on the senior hall,
Mm-hmm.
and that was, if I remember right, $27.70. Or $770. But I know yours, you want your doors all the way around.
They are, yeah, and, trying to keep those to be ADA accessible doors too, since the, it's such a public venue and things like that. Making sure that we keep an automatic system in there and stuff like that, obviously adds to that cost. And they're just inordinately large doors to start with.
I understand that God could number of people done the senior hall, so you could probably get a bid from them.
Yeah.
Kristen Glass, wasn't it, or?
Kristen, reached out to them too, they haven't gotten back to me about coming and looking at it either.
Most of these companies around here that do that, they order the doors out of Kentucky. I know the first one's coming up there, the stairs is too tall. So it took a long time to get them exchanged and back in, but they had them in there the day they come up, they were done that day.
It's not too bad. I know that Marion, Glass and Mirror, the doors, they don't build them themselves over there, they order them directly from Stanley, commercial. So there would be some turnaround time and things like that for them too, and I think because of using the automatic doors and things like that, pretty much anybody's going to be ordering them out of house from someone else.
All right, well, do we just wanna wait on those alternative, options to be explored and then?
Yeah, I think so. That's the first bid is,
I mean, it's not something we gotta have next week or tomorrow, so.
so, doors, you can still come in and out, so we're doing just fine. You know.
Understood. All right.
Okay, is any public comment on building and ground? We'll come out building and ground.
Thank you, Mr. McComb. That takes us to Community Relations, chaired by Mr. John Urbis.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no old business, new business. Next time we have a presentation from Solar Alliance, is that good?
I believe we do, and I slided that here as long as these gentlemen are ready. We do have a couple of folks here from Solar Alliance New Yen, and I think they have perhaps a presentation to make. I don't know if you need the projector and the computer or not, Jason.
It would be fantastic. I'm Jason Bach. I'm the CEO of New Yen and the chairman of Solar Alliance. It would be fantastic if I could play a YouTube thing.
Sure. Is this ready to go, Brian? And we may want to kill one bank of lights. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I could shine it off my head.
No, it was. Came to my attention yesterday. I wasn't able, because of the short notice, I wasn't actually able to get it on the agenda, but it's okay for us to have a, information presentation.
Do we wanna go ahead and give an update on the hotel while they're getting together?
Well, mentioned the crosstalk, give us just a second. Is this a wireless connection? Brian? Okay.
Newspaper journalism. You have put in new inlets down there at the housing? What you guys do down there?
Yeah, they were.
Saw you down there, I thought, are they gonna cut that newly paved road?
We were doing everything we could do to keep from it.
That's half.
The project originally started with Solar Alliance, which is a public company. I'm the chairman of Solar Alliance, but we decided after working on this for about a year, we needed to structure it properly. So we created a brand new company called Nguyen Enterprise Hosting. And Nguyen is focusing on building a traditional infrastructure data center in the area, along with a 3 megawatt solar array. So this video is kind of a summary of who we are and what a data center is and what it does. And I felt that it was a good way to stimulate some discussion, present to you exactly what we're doing. And we put this together for a bank loan committee. The bank said, tell us a bit about yourselves and give it to us visually. So we did this in October, and we're working through the process now. We can talk a little bit about our timeline a little later. But this is the type of video you put together for a $33 million loan. And I thought it would be useful to show yourselves about some of the work that we're doing and who we are. And there is some audio with it, so it may be playing through the PC speaker, so it may not be, let's see how loud that is.
Union Enterprise is developing a sustainable Tier 3 hyperscale data center for cloud and hosting services on an extremely cost-efficient basis. Union Enterprise's data center will offer custom or standard server space on a wholesale or retail basis to companies internationally.
increasing exponentially year on year. More data was produced last year than in the entirety of human history. Data creation from rising technologies like 5G networks, cloud applications, artificial intelligence, and streaming services mean that data centers and their electricity consumption will keep on surging. Data centers consist of a number of redundant systems that ensure consistent uptime, despite system failures, power outages, and disasters. A New Yen hyperscale data center has the following key building blocks: a utility power supply from 2 independent sources, a connection to the electrical grid, and another to a sustainable on-site solar power array with battery backup. Transformers and a UPS that converts grid power to usable voltages, and a stable supply. Lacking for the IT and server equipment. The hot aisle containment system that takes hot air and forces it upward into a ceiling venting system, and a cooling system that ensures all computer equipment operates at optimal temperatures. In September 2019, in advance of the global climate strike, both Amazon and Google made announcements to tackle climate change. Jeff Bezos declared he is buying 100,000 electric delivery vans from Rivian in Illinois and expects 80% of Amazon's energy to come from renewable sources by 2024. While certain companies like Amazon Web Services prefer to build their own facilities, companies like Microsoft and Google are shifting more towards outsourcing their hosting space. New Yen's hyperscale data center is well positioned to take advantage of this trend. New Yen's data center will have a large portion of its power supplied from a utility-scale solar array. This array will produce power during the day, which will continuously charge on-site batteries and provide consistent power. New Yen is responsibly building for a future where sustainability is an absolute corporate necessity.
That's it. Thank you very much for your attention to the video. I hope it was informative. And that was the goal. The goal is to tell the banks that we're borrowing a very substantial amount of money from, about who we are, what we've done in the past, and also about what the project will do in non-financial terms. So this was our introduction to loan committee members that may not have been familiar with data centers, and then ultimately we dive into the discussion of, okay, how are we going to pay you back on the $33 million that we borrowed? That process has been ongoing now since the summer. We started in early July, engaging with a number of banks, local banks primarily, across Illinois and Missouri and a few other states. And we narrowed it down to a list of groups that are interested in expanding into this type of infrastructure. This infrastructure is traditional in the sense that it falls in the same category as a toll road, a bridge, an old age pension home, a hospital, etc. They're very, a wind farm, power utilities, etc. They're, for a certain type of investment, they produce a very stable return. This stands apart from other traditional infrastructure because the type of return is much greater in a data center than you would see with a wind farm or a solar farm, for example. So this hybrid approach gets the banks very interested, it gets investors very interested because of the returns that they can make from investing in this. Our objective, exactly as we said in the video, is to build a business. And that business essentially needs a number of these data centers across the Midwest. And we see the opportunity, we see the talent, we see the skill sets right next door in SIU. We see the openness of the council and the way that Will's embraced us and has been working with us now since 2018 or even before that with Solar Alliance to bring a business like this that is not your normal business. There are not businesses like this existing in many parts of America today, but they do exist in Silicon Valley. They do exist in Tennessee. A couple of days ago, Google announced the largest solar-powered data center on the planet in Nevada. The former governor of Nevada is on our board. So we're working with a number of different individuals and groups and bringing, so to speak, a lot of people to the party in order to get a project like this moving forward. Our timelines, I think I'm very hesitant to predict timelines, but obviously that's of interest to everyone. When does construction start? When do we see something? when do we see jobs, and what's this going to do for the community? I thought we would have been finished before Christmas, in terms of arranging our financing. I can't predict exactly when that's gonna happen, but we can say we're working on it. We're working with a lot of groups, government agencies, as well as individual banks, and continuing to go through the process. We'd like to start immediately. If we had the cash today, we would start today. The world is calling for projects like this that are sustainable, that are environmentally responsible, that can be self-sufficient. And we see that there's fantastic opportunity across the Midwest because of power prices, people, et cetera, that I've gone into before. So I think that this is coming to Illinois. The solar industry has already descended on the state and is booming. This is one of the booming states for solar power. The governor enacted new legislation over the summer to stimulate data centers coming to the state in competition with some other states back east. And we think that that's all favorable for these types of projects. So we're continuing to work through the financing process. There's no fatal flaws. There's just a lot of work to be done. So maybe I can stop there and answer some questions, but that's kind of what we were hoping to convey to the council. And thank you again for all your patience and support throughout the years. And I think we're going to see 2020 be the year that we break ground. I'd also like to introduce my Chief Operations Officer, speaking of breaking ground. Sean Stouffer is newly appointed to UEN, and Sean brings with him a lot of construction experience. And maybe Sean, if you could elaborate on that a bit.
Sure, yeah. So Sean Stouffer, been working closely with Jason over the last 6 months or so. I come from an engineering and architecture background. I'm a professional engineer. I've also been operating a very large construction company in Canada for quite a while, and just changing careers a bit and helping Jason develop this infrastructure project. It's been a real pleasure, and it's been a big help to date, and look forward to seeing a lot of familiar faces and getting to know you all working. Thank you.
We appreciate you being here. Mr. Brad?
What's the projected time, do you think? I know you can't tell, you will have the financing in. You've got some kind of a projection, I'm sure.
I'd like to see it by Q2, but that's what I want. It depends on what sort of hurdles are put in front of us, what sort of materials are requested by the banks, what government agencies may need, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that we can do it by May.
May?
I'd like to break ground by May. The timeline for a project like this is roughly 6 months to build the solar project. It's 12 to 15 months for the improvements to the data center. So these projects can be deployed fairly rapidly. Obviously that brings a whole bunch of construction work, it brings long-term jobs. That's part of the benefits of building facilities like this. And I think what's exciting to us, I mean, we originally started looking for areas where we could bring solar to create jobs. With Solar Alliance, that's part of our ethos. A coal mining town with the history that Murphysboro does, that has and was founded upon, as I understand it, will help show that you can generate revenue from doing different things. And that's what we wanted. We wanted this to be a flagship project. And I think this will be a flagship project for not only Murphysboro, not only the state, but for America. You don't see projects like this very often, but given the announcement from Google just a couple of days ago, I think that validates our model. More and more people care about having electricity from sourcing infrastructure generated from renewable sources. And even some of the leaders like Google and Amazon have doubled their targets as of September for their renewable energy production. So I love it because it's part of what we want to see, more sustainable, local source revenue and production of power. And we want companies and others to use this infrastructure to grow their businesses. And that's one of the things about a data center. A data center is meant to house other people's computers to do things they do on the internet. So there's a lot of data centers in St. Louis, for example. Twitter is a big user in St. Louis. Microsoft as well. This concept that we're using now is called edge computing, where we're outside of the city centers, but because of the fantastic fiber network in this part of Illinois, we can essentially be in Chicago with very low latency. We're effectively in Chicago because our latency is so low, but the land prices are lower, the wages are lower, and that entices companies to come out of the town center lot of economic reasons on top of the sustainable reasons to drive people to the edge. And that's what this is. This is an edge computing data center. And people will use that space to create the next Twitter, to create the next eBay. And that's the secondary and tertiary jobs that are created from a piece of infrastructure like this. It's meant to be used by anybody that needs computing power, that wants to host something or create something. So we think that it's a good stimulus to build their town. Yes?
What percentage of, this thing will be powered by solar and what will you use outside, what outside electricity will you use?
Yes, initially, 3 megawatts of 10 will be solar. So we're planning to upgrade the facility with Ameren to 10 megawatts, but utilize 3 megawatts, maybe 4 megawatts of our own solar power. So it's not 100% power. It's 30 to 40% powered by solar. As we expand, we have ideas to expand this to 30 megawatts by year 7, but then we will have to build solar elsewhere and then source power through the grid. So we can build a solar array maybe 1,500, 1,200 miles away, but because it's fed into the grid, it's owned and managed by Ameren, we can pull off the power at our data center and essentially have additional renewable power. So it doesn't matter where an electron goes into the grid, it moves instantaneously. So you can generate power far, far away, but still have its effective use at your center. So ideally, we'd like to see a 100% powered, renewable powered data center, but we'll have to build the solar elsewhere to support that. And we
You
have,
will have some solar here, 30 to 40% here though.
yes,
Correct?
so
Yeah, okay.
in the acreage north of,
Yes.
of the building,
Yes.
that will, we're
That would be
envisioning
where
that
the
as a
solar
farm.
field or whatever
Yes.
it's called.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
and that will be the first part of the project actually that's built,
Okay, thank
the solar panels.
I'll be a bit negative here, but what if you don't get the financing, what happens to the building?
That's pretty negative. It's a really enticing project. It's highly, highly unlikely that financing would not be obtained for the project. That being said, let's look at this scenario. I think there's a lot of users for space like that. I think we've added value to the space. I think somebody could step into our shoes and come up with a better idea. If there is a better idea, they'd be able to build on the development that we've done, on the modeling that we've done, on the relationships that we've brought to the table to perhaps have their own idea. It is viable. Somebody may come on, wait, let's say we're in the middle of construction, and they tap us on the shoulder and say, you know, guys, well done. No, we're gonna take over and simply buy this out. Amazon's known for doing that. That'd be fantastic. I mean, that'd be a win for everybody. So it is very much like commercial real estate in that sense. You're a developer with an idea. You may have the first shop on the corner, but then somebody's gonna take it and, you know, second shop.
So you mentioned a 7-year plan, and I know that you guys project that far out, but what do you think the likelihood of you guys still owning this project 5 years from now?
Well, in order to become a $1 billion company, we need to build 5 of these.
Okay.
And to build, Sean's managed 4 large projects like this in parallel with budgets greater or small, or greater than this. So you can build 4 of these all together at once. The question is, when you're spreading yourself, I think, you know, right now we're a very small team, we're a startup, and we have lots of experience, but this is a new core of people. And in order to fuel yourself to build 4, maybe you have to sell an interest in one. Maybe it is very viable for us to sell after a few years of operation. You do the grunt work, you get rewarded for that, and then you deploy your equity in 4 more projects.
And I didn't mean that as a bad, that it would be
No,
a
it's not
bad
bad.
thing.
No, that's not a bad thing, that's, yeah.
Depends who the next guy is.
Depends on who
Well,
the next
yeah,
guy is.
exactly.
If they're willing to pay what you're willing to sell it for, I'm sure they've got plans, you know, too, so.
There's a very robust market in Illinois for buying and selling data centers. So these trade continuously in Chicago. Colliers International, a large property group, sells them. CBRE, another large property group, they also sell them, and they have very specialized data center groups. So it is like any other piece of infrastructure, it can trade hands, and it can be built upon, developed. People may have different ideas. They may want to build faster, they may want to build slower.
I appreciate, and I'm sure we all appreciate your interest in our little town.
I think it has potential that I haven't seen in other projects because of the willingness that Will's shown to engage us. Because of this culmination of a number of different factors that I've seen this happen once in my 15, 20-year career. And when you see that, you jump all over it. It's the right fiber network. It's the right electricity price. It's the the right labor cost, it's the right solar resource, it's the right solar price, the cost of panels hasn't fallen so much. All of these, it's the demand for data skyrocketing, all of these different factors are all coming to a head together, and that's what makes it really, really interesting. So it is a special point in time, and I don't know how long that window is open for, but it's open now, and we want to, make hay while the sun shines. And we have a 30-year law.
That's a Midwestern terminology, isn't it?
It's also it's a solar term too.
Oh, okay, that's good.
The sun's always shining.
Yes, that's right.
Any other questions from council? Again, I just echo and appreciate what others have said, your presence here. I don't know where you woke up this morning, probably somewhere far from here. But, the willingness to come here occasionally and update council is important, because I can kind of pass along communication, that we have with one another to some extent, but, there's nothing quite like being there. And I just appreciate you being here this evening to update the council. It really is greatly needed and appreciated, so.
Well, thank you. Ideas change and develop, and I think we can convey that to you as well, to convey the stage that we're at. We're happy to be as communicative as you'd like, and I hope we'll be doing a lot more in the future. And certainly, Sean, will be down here a lot more, and we're working with a lot of local contractors as well, that we're hoping to engage on the project. Our design build contractors in St. Louis, we've been targeting the subs from as much as we can from Murphysboro, so that's our objective. So we want to be engaged, we want to be, we want to use this as our base, and I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with Rivian, and to me that's an amazing Illinois story. We want to be too, Murphysboro, what Rivian is to ship.
I knew I had you hooked on this project when you took a picture of the pork rinds at 17th Street and sent them to your wife. I don't think they have those in Canada.
I don't have it like that.
Yeah.
We're trying to get along the way down.
I'm excited actually for tomorrow.
Yeah, so, anyway, all right, well, thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
We hope to have a new hotel for you soon.
Yes, yes,
hopefully.
the next thing.
Now there's a race to see which one gets done first.
Yes, exactly.
Or really, you start.
I'm not betting on it.
All right.
That is our next agenda item, status update of hotel project. Did you have that?
I did, I wrote some notes out on this in advance of the meeting. I spoke with Joe Capias on January the 11th for about 35 minutes, and here's what I can share. His financing is scheduled to be approved for the hotel on Thursday, at least that is the hope. We just talked about financing a moment ago, but he is very confident of that. I also have spoke with a man named Greg Helton, who apparently is the project manager. He's been building hotels since 1986. He built the Sparta Hotel, and I've talked with him twice, and he says he is ready to go once Joe gives him the go-ahead to go. The latest hiccup in a long series of hiccups with this project is that the Ameren utility poles are now somewhat of an issue, a matter of who's going to pay to move them. Joe says that Ameren needs to pay to move them. Apparently, with the new roadways and things inside the construction area, that's going to facilitate that, and there's some question about IDOT, having said, okay, well, this has to move for safety reasons, whether or not that, means that Ameren pays to move them, how that interacts with our franchise agreement with Ameren. All of these things are being discussed, so that's ongoing. Generally, Joe continues to say that this project is gonna happen and that he's gonna build this hotel. Of course, you guys have sat here and listened to me tell you that now for the better part of 2 years. And so,
I mean, there was some work done on the road.
there was a temporary road built and around the site so that concrete trucks can access it and without, with the rain and things that we've had, without, becoming monuments in the mud.
I said this a bunch of times, but I still think it looks better than what was there before, you know?
Well, this is true.
That is true.
The Apple Tree Inn was great in its day, but what it was at the end of its life wasn't anything that we put on a postcard. And so, it's a, I tell people all the time, I say, I don't get to spend other people's money in the sense that obviously we allocate tax dollars, but when it comes to working with private sector developers, I have little leverage to march into their offices and tell them how they ought to operate their business. And so I just continue to try to be helpful and encouraging as best as I know how, and report back as honestly as I can about the information that I get.
Has there been any discussion with him about the reimbursement of
Yes, the agent with Auto Owners Insurance, which is Ryan Rawson's insurance group, under threat of legal action, is now doing, I received an email this week that said, quote, supplemental investigation is underway, and they say that they will have an answer for me on that reimbursement by 1/31/2020. Because there's a continuing disagreement, obviously, between Mr. Capias and the insurance company for Mr. Rawson. Mr. Bratton.
On that note, I'm still concerned about after we've relocated that sewer line and put dirt up against it. I think, Harold, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's another phase that needs to go on to protect that line from being damaged again if the water gets up, and I did notice the river is coming up today, so.
Yeah, I think ultimately the plan is, and this is through Holcomb Foundation Engineering, did a report back when that sewer line, they did all their borings and everything, but there does need to be some fill put on the lower side, east side of that existing line. And I think, we've been talking about that all through this project, so, yeah, certainly there's something done there.
You can't do, this is a question, shows my ignorance, you can't do fill as long as it's as wet as it is, can you?
No.
I mean, that has to be completely dried out before you can do that.
Yeah, it has to be.
You gotta have a
Yeah.
different, you gotta have a different type of soil. The
Oh,
problem-
okay, so that it
You've gotta
doesn't
have more of a
just-
clay soil, so
Okay.
it'll hold the thing.
Yeah,
And I
gotcha.
guess I brought this up periodically, I just don't want us to forget sight of this. And today when I saw the river come, was up quite a bit, I thought,
Quite a bit.
uh-oh, no, we don't wanna get bit.
That's up a whole.
Well, thankfully, the line was relocated. It wasn't replaced at the original location.
Correct.
Which does put it back further from the floodplain than it was before. And as a matter of fact, that's a part of this whole ongoing dispute, is that the insurance company says, you shouldn't have moved that line, or, the cost to replace it would have been much lower if you wouldn't have relocated it further from the floodplain. And my response to that has been, I couldn't have located it where it was, because where it was no longer existed. So, you can't put something back, unless you wanted us to bring in, 6 months worth of semi-trucks full of dirt, so that was, sort of one of those points that certainly I didn't agree with, because, I was getting a lot of flack about, well, why'd you make the decision to ultimately move the thing?
Harold, did you have to put any new manhole down there?
Yeah, there's two manholes put in,
Because you changed the flow?
to change the direction of it more than anything.
Thank you.
Well, still in there, the Ameren project from down by the river too.
Yeah.
I saw surveyors out last month on Walnut Street, or do we know when they're getting ready to start tearing that building on 6th?
The old dispatch center?
Yeah.
Eric, do you have any update on that? I do not.
The other Ameren building?
Yeah.
Not till 21.
Oh, they're not doing that.
So they're out finalizing the sampling. They're sampling on the alley to see if there's anything in it.
See how far.
But with what happened over the water this year, it pushed them back. They're not gonna try to hustle that too fast, it'll be next year.
Mr. Schiffer?
I might add on the original site that, I think they're pretty well done with that. We have met with them on repair of the road, so I think they're waiting until spring to,
Okay.
there's gonna be some of those roads are gonna be oil and chip, some of them are gonna be concrete, some of them are gonna be asphalt, so.
And I saw people out on Walnut Street, I didn't know if it was for that or if it was for the road, Walnut Street resurfacing, you know. There was somebody from IDOT, you know, out there doing work too, I don't know, so,
Yeah, I mean, that's still scheduled, I think, for a March letting.
so that may have been.
Yeah, all-night event.
Okay.
All right, thank you for the update. Any public comment on community relations?
Thank you, Mr. Urbis. That takes us to public improvement, chaired by Mr. Mike Bastian.
Thank you, Mayor. There's no old business. We have 3 items under new business. The first item is discussion regarding the north-south alley from Walnut Street to Pine Street between 17th and 18th. And I believe, Mayor, you had that put on the agenda?
I did.
Was that,
I did.
I think that's 16th and 17th.
Between 16th and 17th.
oh, 16th and, okay,
Yeah.
it said
Yeah.
17th and 18th, okay.
Well,
Well, whoever had it put on the
Yeah.
agenda, if they'd like to address, tell us,
Well-
let us know.
Did you have it put on too, Gary?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
In my opinion, it needs to be opened up.
Now,
But I haven't really seen any construction going on there in the last 4, 5, 6 months, or whatever it's been. And I think we need to open that, take the barricades down, open that alley up until they go back and start to work.
Making that motion down.
well, I do have some information. Having seen this on the agenda, I reached out to Amy Mills for an update on what was going on with the sauce factory, so I can share that now if you like. This was on Sunday. I emailed her and I said, basically, what's going on with the alley. And her contractor, Sam Liacano, I believe is how it's pronounced, said the plumbers will begin rough-in next week, which I guess would be this week. The alley behind the factory running east to west that connects to 16th Street will need to be closed because they will be digging to connect the new factory sewer line to the city sewer line. As for the alley running north to south, Walnut to Pine, there will not be any work going on along that side of the building. So it can be open, but I would recommend leaving it closed as well because there will be a lot going on nearby and it might reduce safety risk to workers if it remains closed. So they kind of leave it to our discretion.
But they are starting on Sunday.
Do what?
How much traffic does that alley get?
Cause they hadn't got any for about 3 years.
Right, I mean, I'm saying as far as the safety concerns, you know.
Good.
I think what it is, it's not a highly used alley.
Can I ask you, when we originally talked about closing it down, didn't they request that eventually that be made a one-way there? also?
They did, yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Are those our barricades,
South to north?
or that,
Yes. it's-
are those our barricades down there?
Are they? They've been there so long,
That's pretty scary. isn't
Yeah,
it?
they're 3 years.
Those 3 years, you haven't had to have
That's,
one.
Darren, I do think I'm not positive, but I think you're over it.
They've had possession for a long time.
I'd entertain a motion to remove the barricades until they go back to work, and at which time put them back up.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Show Mr. Urbis opposed.
I am too.
Show Ms. Campbell's opposed. All right.
The next item on the agenda is the discussion regarding the cleanup of the Beckman property. I know a lot of aldermen are familiar with it. I've had the discussion with the mayor, and I've spoken with Alderman Pearson, who has spoken with Mr. Beckman. So at this time, I'm gonna turn it over to the mayor to start off and let us know what took place at the Beckman property.
Sure, well, I'll share my perspective on what happened there on Sunday, December the 29th. I got a text message that said that the roof at the Beckman property had collapsed. And so then I think shortly thereafter, got a phone call from Chief McBride, and he relayed the same information and asked me, in quick conversation, what we ought to do about it. And I asked him, you know, well, what's the safety concern here? And he said, well, what's left of the roof is pushing on the facade and could potentially push that out into the street or into the sidewalk. And so I said, well, it sounds like something we need to just go ahead and get somebody to get in there and tear it down and clean it up. So he was able to call a few contractors, make contact with Ryan Rawson to push it in and make it safe, which Rawson did come and do. That was in the morning. Later that afternoon, I got a call from Mr. Rawson, and he asked me essentially, Mayor, there is this roof debris here, there's other, he said, stuff here. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to just clean this all up or what? And as I viewed it, it was essentially an ongoing code enforcement issue because we had been talking about it at the council level in that way. And so, I had heard it told Mr. Beckman was old and infirm and unable to essentially clean it up himself. And so I said, go ahead and clean it all up. In some ways, I sort of thought I was doing Mr. Beckman a favor because of the perspective I had from the council meeting conversations. Obviously, I found out later that there were items there that that had value and that he valued, and he was very upset that we had cleaned all of that up. And so I believe we have a meeting scheduled, myself and Mr. Pearson and Mr. Beckman in the morning, where I'm gonna welcome a conversation with him. You know, I'm willing to admit when I make my mistakes. I probably should have investigated this further than I did, and that's kind of my perspective on it. Mr. McComb.
Well, most everything he had under that, to you, me, or somebody else, was junk. You know, old lawnmowers, and just junk in there. What he was doing was probably taking pieces off that and then putting on other stuff. And when I go by there, I thought, when I seen Rawson in there just scraping across the floor, I thought, well, city's gonna be in a lawsuit here because that's his stuff. Once we got the roof down, and got it safe, we should've walked away from it and then issued him a time frame to get it up. That's just my opinion. The time frame to get it up, he didn't do it, then we proceed with what we had to do. I know why you done what you wanted to do, get it all done at once. But the thing is, that was his stuff, that was his roof. Once we secured it from not falling out on the sidewalk, that sidewalk there, we should have backed off, in my opinion, and let him take over from there and give him so many days. And then we had to go to a court order to clean it up. He'd either get his stuff out of there, and he never got it out of there because he's not able.
I believe Mr. Pearson had his hand up.
I probably talked to Mr. Beckman more than any of you have, because he called me the other morning, we spent a great deal of time. And then I had quite a conversation with him at his house. I don't think Norm had a problem with tearing the stuff down and hauling off the roof. I don't believe that was a problem at all. I think he knew that it had to be hauled off, and there's no way on earth that he would have ever been able to do it. Those of you, most of us have been around the Beckmans most of our lives, and they're honest, good people. And Norman is also. The problem he had was hauling off some of the material that you know, to you and I are probably junk, but I got a lot of stuff in my garage that's probably, you and I, a lot of you guys would think is junk too, but it's money to him. And some of it was sentimental stuff that he had. That's where the whole thing came in. Now, Norman isn't wanting to sue anybody, he isn't wanting anything like that, all he wants is just a fair settlement, and I think tomorrow morning that Will and I and Norman can get together and Betty and talk this thing out and make it work. I mean, I'm more upset than probably most of you, because I just think it's wrong to haul material off, somebody's material off and sell it without his permission, and Will knows, I mean, I think Will is figured that out too by now, but let's,
Well, if I had to do
let's
it
face
all
it,
over
it's
again,
done.
I would have done it with a little more nuance
It
than I
is.
did.
That's what it is, I mean, you know, it's like, it got the thing cleaned up, and we've had it on this agenda for a long time, Mike will tell you that.
Yeah, we
The
have.
problem was, no one had ever given Mr. Beckman a time limit to clean it up. We all said it has to be cleaned up.
Yeah.
But like many things we do a lot of talking, but we don't do much doing, and that was one of those cases where he never had any ultimatum to clean it up
I think
until it fell down.
Alderman Pittman would like to say.
I think when you and I talked about it, I'm okay with, I think we should reimburse him for whatever was there that, you know, like, I've had the same stance with you, I don't think we should go on to people, but I understand the situation where Will was coming from also. I would like to see an itemized list of some of the, at least some of the stuff up there that may hold some value and.
He has that.
Okay,
He has
if
that?
that's the case, then I'm
Matter of
okay
fact, I
with,
have it at home, I just didn't.
you know, reimbursing him out of what he was gonna owe us for the
Yeah, he was gonna pay us for the.
excavation,
Yeah.
tearing, or picking up the roof. I just don't wanna reimburse him for $1,800 worth of stuff, you know, I wanna know what was there and what was worth some money.
We think they'll determine that after the meeting.
Well, I mean, I agree, with, you know, the stuff that was there was exposed to elements for years and
Right,
years.
but like Will and I talked about some of those guys, an odd motor on a lawnmower may have a crankshaft on it that's worth $175 to somebody, and, you know, that, if somebody asks him if he's got one, he can go take it off there and give it to him or ship it to him or whatever, and that's worth $175, even though it's an old rusty lawnmower sitting in the corner, you know, that's, and that kind of stuff is gonna have some value.
Let's go to Gloria first, and we'll go down. the-
It is to say, it is what it is. There is nothing that we can do. Big mistake, I'm sorry. Let's settle this, everybody happy, basket of fruit, and that's it. You know, there is nothing that we can do.
I think, John, you
Well,
want
I understood he didn't have insurance, so he wasn't gonna be able to.
He didn't have insurance?
No, so he wasn't gonna be able to.
He had liability.
He had liability, or somebody had to.
So, I mean, he would have had costs, I think should be taken into consideration.
Yeah. But we also went a little bit beyond, but that's okay.
Alderman Hughes?
Thank you. And this is really for Eric perhaps. You know, all of us sitting here know that this was a code violation for a long time. And it's been on this agenda for a long time, it's been on our radar for a long time. And the bottom line here is, yes, it is what it is, it's done, let's compensate and move on. And I'm sorry that happened, but what I think might be even another problem is that, does he know it was a code violation?
I talked to him
I wanna
several
know
years
about
about
written
this.
things.
They were not written.
Okay.
Every time I reported to you, I told you I went face to face with him and his wife.
Yes.
They deserve that. He can't get around, he's in a chair with wheels on.
Oh, I know that, I'm not,
I figured it was right to go to him, he'd like to their face and talk to them about it. Every time I talked to the city council, I told you I went and talked to them.
and I appreciate that, I just think that at some point, Eric, and we need to think about, I mean, they're a wonderful family, I'm not putting that down whatsoever, and I think they're very, very honest, and I appreciate the fact that you took the time to go and talk to them personally, but there's also the fact that he was in violation of the code and was never really given that, I don't think he was ever given that information written, that he even knew that he was.
You might.
When they're writing face
Yeah,
to face.
you know,
We as
and
a- I
that
think we
bothers
as a
me to
council
some
could be
extent,
better
that's
at
just my own opinion.
saying, we want a notice to go out, you know, like,
Put it in writing.
Well, there should be policy
Black on white.
procedures.
I was gonna say, I think we should have some kind of policy that's done regularly anyway, but that's another story completely. Yeah.
I like to say, and Eric, and I know you went face to face, I appreciate
And I
that.
appreciate
But
that.
did you, and I know you did not send a notice, but did you put any documentation into a file that you did speak to him on this date and advise him according to?
Just telling you guys.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Okay, thank you.
that's-
Gary, Alderman McCollum.
Well, I'm just gonna tell Eric, I think that he done right, going up to talk to Mr. Beckman face to face. I think you owe that to your residents and your business people, to go talk to them face to face and tell them. And then write him ticket or anything, that's another thing off-site. But I think you done right, Eric, of going and talking to Sonny Buckman face to face. I think we owe any business or any resident to go tell them what's going on face to face, and you done that, and I think he's right doing it.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments? I think, Mayor, if you're going to meet with him and Alderman Pearson and John tomorrow, maybe you could, oh, you weren't going to, okay, who was gonna meet?
Just myself, Alderman
And
Pearson.
Pearson, okay, if you guys wanna meet with him, come up with something. I mean, does the council, I'm okay with it, if you two come to a fair agreement, do we have to vote on that? Can we give you the authority just to settle? Does the council want it brought back to them or for the next meeting agenda, or how do you wanna?
Well, I would think that, unless I think the only right way to do it is to talk to him, see what they say, bring that back at the next council agenda for everybody to be able to look at it.
Okay.
Just for full transparency. Sitting
Yep.
back.
Okay, well, Leslie, if you could make note to put on the agenda for that.
Excuse me.
Or Sandra.
We'll take care of it.
Okay, with that being said, we have one more item on the agenda. It's the discussion regarding the code violation at 811 North 14th Street. Mayor, I don't know if you want to discuss it. I don't know if Eric wants to discuss the issue that we've had there.
When I saw this yesterday morning, I sent the demo stuff out.
You did what? You want to explain to us what's going on? Because I didn't know until I read
The
it.
garage is falling down.
Yeah, I knew that.
Reeves' house.
Uh-huh. Right.
And like I said, when I saw it on the agenda, that's the first I'd heard. I just don't go up 14th Street.
Uh-huh.
So I sent the demolition stuff out as soon as I found out there was a complaint. That's the first I'd heard about it.
And just for clarity's sake, just so everybody understands what's happening here, there's a garage behind this home that is essentially fell in, and it was brought to my attention by a resident, and so it sounds like Mr. Kennedy has taken some demolition action on it, because it certainly almost demolished itself.
It is, I drove by it today, yeah. Perhaps we could keep that on the agenda too, and maybe Mr. Kennedy could update us on the next meeting on that as well. Do we have any further discussion? Yes?
Yes,
Alderman Campos.
we're sharing agenda, but, I was informed, Mayor, that the person who complained, for 635 North 15th Street, that you are, the house,
Oh, yeah, 635 North 16th,
North 15th,
15.
almost, is in my word, but, yeah.
631?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
That's, yeah, Ben's,
Okay,
mhm,
yes.
631.
631?
I think it is.
Okay.
Close.
Yeah, the North
In the
15th, it's
vicinity.
on the 600, and it's on the right street, but, are we doing something, and there is a complaint, I'm not gonna be, a complaint about somebody's living in a house that it does not have water and sewer, and, there is evidence that they do use it as a, have something kind of business that they're not good, and they bring some certain people that they're not good too, but God will forgive them. Yeah, no, they even have children, this house is, they have children and they're collecting water with buckets when it's raining, and that is a no-no.
I had a lengthy discussion today with the city staff and about what our ordinance allows and doesn't allow when it comes to notifications, et cetera, whenever you have someone who isn't living or is living in a home that probably should be deemed unfit for human habitation underneath our ordinance. And so I know that there is some ongoing research being done there in coordination amongst departments to figure out what the best approach to make is, with the fact that we have a situation where there could be young people involved, and, you know, we just want to make sure that we do the right thing, but do the right thing in the right time.
Yeah, we'll ask for permission this time.
Yes, I'm not trying to clean up that property in the same manner as the other.
And then they say that they're not living there, but they are remodeling the house.
Yes.
But they're selling stuff that they're not supposed to sell.
Okay, thank you, Alderman. Do we have any other comment from the Alderman? Do we have any public comment? With that being, yes, sir.
Question on the Beckman property, whenever that roof fell in, was any of this stuff that was still there salvageable?
I believe some of it was, yes.
You know, 'cause I'm thinking the roof falls in, you know.
It was what you would call salvageable. I probably would have called it money because I do
Yeah,
that.
no, okay, well, no, I was just wondering about it.
But,
I have a second question also.
Go ahead.
Going down Walnut Street today, take a close look, no work has been done on the roof at the depot. For how many years? Well, no. I remember a council meeting where we had a commitment from the owner, he had made arrangements with somebody to do work on that roof. And nothing has happened, and I just wanted to bring that up.
Do you have a update on that? I haven't heard anything.
My understanding that he and Clover Roofing have worked a deal out, and that Mr. Clover, not Gary, but his son, who's actually running the business, is going to put a roof on it.
Okay, no, I just.
Yeah, no,
Just-
that's my understanding.
We're waiting.
We're watching, yeah, we're watching. Okay, do we have any further comment? Okay, with that, yes.
Does anybody have any idea about, the, museum in the historic district? There's a house that's right there that there's some kind of structure built out across the sidewalk and, well, right up to the edge of the
No, it's
sidewalk.
across the
Oh, it's across the
Across the
sidewalk.
sidewalk, yeah. I was like, how was it across the
Oh, okay,
sidewalk?
I didn't
They've
realize that.
extended it out
Oh, I
like,
didn't know that. Last I saw it was right up against.
yeah,
Where-
what's happening with,
Just about across from, J.T. Blankenship.
The,
Okay.
yeah, it is, it's right across
Yeah.
from, JT. They own that house, the museum owns that house now, and they have been doing digs in that area. And they made that as a dig area, they found lots of artifacts in there of, pottery and, dishes and things that they're putting together, and I don't know if that's a permanent thing, when you talk to, Jones about it, probably, but if it, I mean, if it's across the sidewalk, I thought it was right up to the sidewalk.
yeah.
But I know that they had it covered so they could continue to do digs in inclement weather.
Yeah,
So it may be a temporary.
It's not permanent, so.
Maybe
from what
a
I'm hearing,
temporary thing,
it's,
so
you know,
they can still get those
It
digs
doesn't
in
go all the way
there
across the
to
sidewalk.
do.
It's all the way across.
Almost.
Well, again, guilty party right here.
Oh, yay! You know how I am about sidewalks
Well,
usually.
Mr. Jones called me and he said we are doing excavation work here to find, historical items from the original Logan home. Now, I will say truthfully that, he said, would it be all right if we temporarily encroached upon the sidewalk with a structure so that we could continue these digs in through the winter months and inclement weather?
Yeah,
And I told him, I said, that would be fine on a temporary basis. Now, if it's all the way across the sidewalk and we've got drywall and up and everything else. that's-
It's not drywall, yeah.
It's pressed
Well, maybe we
board.
could check with him and see where they're at.
How much longer? I will call him and ask him how much longer because obviously we can't allow that. Just-
Bring us up to
Walk down the road.
I only asked because somebody asked me,
Yeah.
so I was like.
People are
present-
posted,
Yeah,
Actually, look
something-
down in there.
I do think, Mayor, I do
See
think
what
you
they're
brought that
doing
to
too.
the
Oh, it's
council's
kinda neat.
attention when you brought it
Oh,
up.
walk
Right,
outside.
it seemed like we discussed that.
I may have
It's been a
mentioned
while.
that in a while back under my mayor's.
Okay, do we
Mr.
have?
McComb?
Yes.
Then you're talking about stuff on the right, how do they get by with the stage, the Blues Brothers, up there on the sidewalk all the time? If they're, get around, they don't have to move it or take it down. I only have one complaint on it, somebody said they had a hard time, it was during Apple Festival, they had an extra large wheelchair, of getting it by there. But that sits on there all the time. I know the Logan Museum, I talked to you about that a while back, but that's temporary, they're gonna take it down, they built a nice thing there, enclosed it so they could hit. But that over there at the bar has been on there, I don't know how long, and nobody's ever said a word about that.
What is it, Gary?
They got the stairs before it's on the roof, brother.
I
On the
know,
sidewalk.
they used to store it between the buildings, between the Bruce Brothers building and, or the old dance studio and the Masonic Lounge. I'm sure if we told them it was an issue, I'm sure they knew it.
Well, just go by and look at it, see if it ain't out on the sidewalk. Somebody complained to me that they couldn't get, they had it, just not a regular small one, they had a little bit bigger, and they couldn't get by there without getting off the curb.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's, it's not my lord, but when we're talking about stuff on the sidewalk.
Yeah, nobody
somebody
called.
look at it.
Well, we can certainly communicate with them and, you know, ask them to move that.
I don't think he
I don't think he had an issue with
an issue with that whatsoever, truthfully.
And Alderman Hughes, I was glad to see your building was in.
That's why I have a note here that, it was
All right.
so wise for the.
Okay.
Let's
Okay,
move on.
Yeah, do we have any further, requests from the aldermen?
Just, I had 2 phone calls the day that they moved that building that
Okay.
went, hurrah!
Well, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I also, when I left Jim Stewart's, retirement party, Sean Stearns came running after me and he said, I have pictures of when they were moving it, so.
Good. With that being said, I'm gonna close public improvement and I'm gonna turn it over to Danny Bratton, Public Works.
Okay. Old business, none. New business. Discussion regarding ditch from Illinois Avenue to Roberta Drive parallel to 16th Street.
Yeah, me.
Okay.
Okay, it's, the people from Brigham Church, they were talking to me, they called me actually and tell me that the ditch, it gets filled up, it never drains. I explained them about Mr. Romel's situation, that we're working on it, that there is the whole neighborhood that it gets affected when it rains because no proper drainage, and so they're informed. But I told him that I will put him on the agenda.
Now, you're talking about where all those duplexes are at in the back, is that what, north of
Yes,
that?
it goes behind the church,
Okay.
yeah.
Behind the church.
Robert, part of the problem see, the street was never turned, it was never brought up, I think, to city standards, so that's basically a private street.
You
That
mean it's
ditch
on
is
city
in a
street?
private property?
Very possibly it could be, I don't know if it's on private property or where it's located, but I know that road was never turned over to the city because it didn't meet the requirements.
Which road's that?
There is no
Roberta
road.
Drive, Joab Lane.
No, the one right, yeah, just north of the church that comes.
North of
It
the
is
Brigham
a-
Christian
Lane,
Church,
Joab Lane.
you turn just as soon as you get to the north side of their church.
It's like
Turn right.
Snyder Street, isn't it?
And
Yeah,
then
it
turn
goes
left.
to
Yeah, I
Schneider,
think it
yeah,
is.
it is, it's always, huh?
Job,
Okay,
and on the backside of 14th Street would be like, where Mike Davis's salon is.
Yeah,
Uh-huh,
and that ditch runs between Korean's property and Shimoni and.
mm-hmm.
on over to Roberta Drive.
And so, did I lie when I told them that,
You didn't lie, but you might have been misinformed.
oh, Sandra? Okay, so now what should I tell them?
I don't know
That
if
you
that,
brought it to council?
Drainage ditch?
It is always full of water, and in the summer, I mean, the zancudos are terrible around there, because they're hibernating.
So I'm trying to understand how
Oh, the mosquitoes, I'm sorry.
I'm trying to understand how whether a street is a city street or a private drive has any impact on whether or not this ditch drains.
Yeah, I don't think it should.
Oh, I
I'm
have
not
no
saying,
idea.
I'm saying I don't know if that ditch is on city property or private property.
Well, that ditch, I mean, starts on, at Illinois Avenue, it's not necessarily even, I mean, it doesn't run right along parallel with those two roads all the way there.
Well, it goes straight and then it kind of, or bends right, how that, the ditch is like, I don't know if it's on private property or what. All I did was make the statement that the street there was
Well,
privately owned street.
We did work on the concrete drainage on the school district property last year. I mean, that's not the city property, so, I mean, I think the bottom line is exactly what you told them, that the ongoing progress on the Rubel issue should help to maybe not alleviate their concern, but, you know, help to alleviate to some degree. And so we'll continue to work on it, and hopefully we can get somewhere, because we're working on it now.
I know we're working on it, so I say, oh, piece of cake, I know what we're talking about, but now it's like, oh.
Okay. The other part is the consideration of the motor fuel resolution for the paving of Walnut Street. I think we had a copy of that.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion. And we have a second. All in favor, aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Do we have any comments from the alderman on public works? Any from the, people in the audience? If not, we'll come out of public works, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bratton. That takes us to public safety, and we're very happy to have Mr. Russell Brown back with us this evening. Russell, it's good to see you. How you doing?
I'm hanging in there.
Oh, good. Chair of Public Safety, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, old business discussion regarding Gillenberg property.
Spoke with Joe Summers in the last couple of days. He has received a verbal notice from the county that they feel their building is substantial or sound, so that he can go ahead and tear his down. He's waiting on them to give that to him in writing and for his insurance company to be satisfied with what they received from the county. He has a contractor selected, and so as soon as he and the insurance company are satisfied with what they received from the county, he plans to begin.
Good.
Did the latest rain cause any additional?
Not a bit. That building has not moved since that occurred. I went back, I go back periodically and look at my original pictures from that night that we took with the drone, as well as what I took around the outside of the building. It does not appear to have moved at all. Like I said though, before, the rain hasn't affected it. My concern would be a snow load should that occur, but it appears to be fairly stable in its current state.
Okay. Mr. McCollum?
Hey, Chief, is he gonna let you know who the contractor is? The reason why I say,
You came in today,
Okay.
and he, was emailing or texting the, contractor. He had two, one didn't get back to him, so he's going to talk to the other one. He might even get an engineer to go in on the state or the county building to protect himself too.
the only reason why I ask, as soon as they get, award that bid to a contractor, we need to get our fencing and stuff out of there and let them take over that, so we're not responsible. Anything falls on the outside of our fence and hits somebody, brick bounces, hit somebody over the courthouse, because we have a fenced off. I say they may have a lawsuit because we didn't fence it back far enough. We just need to get our stuff out of there the first chance we get.
Yeah, I told Mr. Summers that he needed to, as part of the bids he received, to account for security fencing, you know, and, cause that would be on his contractor.
Yeah, cause that fence up there is down half the time.
Yeah, the wind gets, it's hard to hold that up, but yeah, he is aware of that.
That's all I have.
All right.
Yeah, that's all we have on the old business. New business request for parking on South 13th Street by Real Church. No parking except on Sundays.
Yes, there's been, you know, on Sundays in particular, people driving up, dropping people off. We do this accommodation for others. Sandra, did Pastor Noah come in and talk to you about this? I recall perhaps.
No, Dan Pullis did.
Dan Pullis did, okay.
He said right now they are helping people offload there, and they're moving their cars for them, any handicappers, people.
Except that they got our city parking lot right next to them, to park in where they can go to church. And they probably got, the bank don't say much over there from parking there on Sunday. They just don't want anybody parking in front of the building. That's what you're saying?
No, right now there is no parking, they want to be able to park there on Sundays.
Right. Because I think what's happening is as they're helping some people get in and out of church, they're even just temporarily parking a few cars there, and the course of getting people in and out of the services, and we have no parking signs up there now, and they would like to have that same small
Just on that
accommodation.
side of the street, that's what.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it on, just on Sundays. I think we
But
accommodate every
on
other
Sunday
church in
only?
town.
I mean, we do that exact same thing for the church right down on Spruce Street or where.
For Elm Street and Emmanuel.
Well, and I'm
We do
saying
that
even on-
for St. Peter's.
Yeah, St. Peter's is what I was talking about.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Alright,
Ayes have it. Any public comment?
All right. Well, that takes us out of that. We already, went into personnel earlier in the meeting, so we can move past that and move into the mayor's report. One thing I don't have here on the agenda under the mayor's report, and I meant to get to this just a moment ago in Public Works, but my mind went to a different direction. We do have with us this evening one of our new employees at the wastewater treatment plant, and of course, our former Mr. Pat Gladson. Do you want to introduce our new employee?
As y'all know, I took over for Jim, and I took over for Jim, the city and I, we hired Travis Stewart to replace my position, Mrs. Travis. Nice to meet you all, thanks for the opportunity to work for the city.
thank you.
All right, that takes us into the other agenda items on the mayor's report. Up first, we have consideration of annexation of property. This has been a thing we just held on the agenda due to a potential annexation out at 149 and 127/13, I guess. Mr. Heller, do you have anything to put on
I
that?
haven't had any update, so I think that there's something in that project that's sitting still right now, so when it's ready to go, they'll come back to us.
Okay, all right. Well, I probably will remove that from the agenda until we get the information that it needs.
Leave it on one more month. I talked to Mr. Maloney.
We'll leave it on our next meeting. All right, we go to the update on the Rubel flooding issue. I look back to our attorneys and our engineers for anything to report there.
Well, we are still working on the hydraulics, see if there is any property. I think we're gonna need some property on the east side of Mr. Rubel's also, so we're just trying to get that determination, make sure we get a good legal description to give to the attorneys to meet back with Charlie.
Do you think that we can have set a deadline for that legal description to be provided?
I would hope we can have that by the next meeting then.
Okay,
Yeah.
that would be great. I just wanna make sure we continue to keep the fire underneath that item. The other thing that I had on the agenda here, and I just offer this up as potential, Temple Display is a group that sells Christmas decorations, commercial Christmas decorations, and all of us are familiar with the larger snowflakes that are draped across Walnut Street. In fact, there are two sets of them. Those are 7-watt, older style bulbs, and anybody who during the Christmas season drives down Walnut Street knows that by the time Christmas gets here, about a third of the lights are burned out on both of them. This time of year, I got this solicitation. It's unbudgeted, it's a little bit expensive, $4,655.16 to purchase 2 of those, but they would be LED lamps, which would be a lot more durable. And so I just thought I'd see if there was any interest in the city pursuing that, just because of the age and the way that those other ones continue to sort of deteriorate. This year.
Just like off the wall, but can you put LED bulbs in those old, or is that
Structures.
a structures? I mean, I don't know if that's even a possibility.
No, it's a great question, and it's one I hadn't thought of. Mr. Mills, any thoughts on that? You know those better than anybody.
I do know that Sean Stearns takes care of all the apples, and the gentleman that he has do that, he tells us to be extremely careful with them because it is extremely expensive to have them switched over to LED. I don't know what.
It maybe costs as much as to do it.
Exactly. You know, this is an individual doing it, so
Yeah.
They are, they're
I just didn't know if that expensive, that would be more or less. If they're a screw-in type, I don't know why it couldn't be changed to it, but if it's the kind like you have on your Christmas tree that
Sure.
has, that may be a whole different story, but I just haven't thought about it before.
Of course, I also thought, you know, I have no idea how the original decorations were purchased years ago. I don't know if anybody remembers.
Yeah, the mayor blow.
He did. Yeah.
It's one of those.
One of the old guys up on the top.
That's good, Gary.
Appleton must have more money than I do, but,
And they weren't a full-time mayor.
Mr. Pearson.
Is there any way that tourism money
Well,
can be
that's
used for that?
kind of what I was leading up to. I don't know if I could,
Think you can get Mike to give you some of his tourism?
probably if we could leave his hut up over the sidewalk.
That's right.
Negotiate.
Well, I will go to some of those other agencies and see if we can get any kind of, help on this and see if we can get the price down. But, you know, we are really investing
In town.
in Main Street and downtown and the hometown Christmas group that's really become a sort of a keynote
Oh, I
event.
agree.
If you can get them down to $4,000, then they're coming down anyway,
Okay,
you know.
well, there
You got
sounds,
the grand each one.
sounds like there is some interest from the city and we might be willing to
You got
participate.
somebody wanting to donate money right there.
Big law for
Look
downtown.
at the light, the color value in the lights.
Mhm.
My neighbor knows that I put LED lights on my bushes. I thought they would match the white lights on my pillars. And one's a yellow warm light
And one's
and one's a blue cool light, and they don't look good
They don't look
together
good
at all.
Yeah.
So if you get a cool white light in your cross parts, your stars on the posts might look like they don't combine.
That's really a good
that
point.
one the
That is a
hard
good
way.
point.
And they have to be warm white LED.
Well, I've got more research to do,
Yeah.
obviously.
But
And Amy Navarro Murphy would probably be a good one to test the
Okay.
color value.
These are 534 C7 LED lamps, so I
But
don't
it
know.
doesn't tell you what they're coloring.
Okay, well, I'll do some more work on that. Spicer might be interested. Of course, this price is only good through the end of February, so.
Well, you better get going on this.
All right.
Secret minds.
Yeah. Speaking of Main Street and downtown, the city, with the help of, Greater Egypt Regional Planning Commission, got a $60,000 grant to help facilitate an awning, program, a new awning program for downtown businesses. Some of you might have noticed that some of the old, metal awnings have been coming down, and that's in anticipation of some of these other awnings, going up. This project at $60,000 is above the $20,000 threshold to have to seek more than one bid. As I have done some research, there are of course awning companies in St. Louis, there's one in Paducah, there's one in Cape, and there's one here in Carbondale. The one in Carbondale has been very helpful and willing to do CAD drawings and all of these other things. And I would like, to help facilitate this project, if we could waive the bid requirement, to have to solicit other far-flung awning companies to have to come to Murphysboro and bid this. I'm more than happy to reach out to people, but these folks have been so involved along the way. I'm just being upfront, bottom line upfront here, I'd really like to use them because they're local, we'd be spending our money the most local, and they're more than a qualified bid.
That eight?
It's Hakes, yes.
Just, all it takes is 8 votes. When you got your, if you got the contract lined out, all you have to do is.
Well, let me
present
ask-
to council, get 8 votes, and you can vote.
I've got one question.
Me too.
Okay.
I don't care.
Mr. Heller, are you satisfied with their work?
They've done good work for me.
Yeah, and I know that they've taken care of the awning for
Well,
you.
now, most of the work that's been done on my awning was done when Larry was still running the company, and Larry sold that company to some younger people now, but what I've seen of their work, they're pretty good work, and Larry's pretty happy with it.
Okay.
All right. Mr. McComb?
The other way you can get around that bid is bid at a block at a time. Haven't bid the whole thing and divide your blocks up, and you're gonna be under that threshold at a time. No,
That's what it's doing.
that's what we done before.
I'd get
If the egg vote,
Yeah, then we end up with a LED one
Thank
right
you,
before
Clay.
Ms. Hughes?
That's not a requirement of the grant,
No.
that is a city policy
It
of
is.
anything over $20,000.
It is not a requirement of the grant,
All
but
right, that
it
was
is.
my only
I'll
concern.
make a motion to waive that.
Yeah, I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor,
Mayor,
signify
roll
by
call.
saying aye.
Don't wait.
I don't, I think that the right way to do that is to get the bid that you're satisfied with and
Okay.
present that bid for approval.
Well,
As
I thought
opposed
they
to, just, you know,
Well,
sight unseen, wave.
I do have a bid, but I don't have it here in front of me. So I will bring that back to the next meeting, and we can handle it that way, just so
I
I
think that the council should be voting on the number. They see the number on this thing, they say, well, go, that much money for New York City.
Right.
You know, so rather than waving it blind without seeing what the bid is, we're waving it for.
I'm confident their number is reasonable, but I think it's better government to bring it back here and vote on it that way, and I
Oh, I
agree.
agree.
So, okay, well, we'll withdraw, show those motions withdrawn, and we'll carry this over to the next meeting and bring you a black ink on my paper deal. So,
no blue.
or blue or red or whatever the printer prints in. All right, that takes us to council member requests, I think. And we'll start to my right, which is your left, and Ms. Hughes.
Yeah, I don't have anything really, except I just think that you should be aware, you should all be aware of this, I think this is so neat. This public works, both, water and streets, those two departments work so well together. You should all be aware that Tim had a great big, sewer line that broke on Dewey?
Clay Street.
Clay Street, excuse me. And Darren was having a slow week, sent two of his people to work with Tim. Darren wasn't having a slow week, sent two of his But what my point here is, the way they trade people back and forth, I think that is really so commendable, and I thank you both for that.
All right.
Even though it wasn't a slow week. I mean, and he now is saying, now then, you guys, thanks for the way you did that.
All right, to go to Ms. Curry Witzman. All right, Mr. Brown. Mr. Pearson. Mr. McComb. Clerk Ripley.
I actually do.
Okay.
Our insurance company has brought it to my attention that we do not have minor subsidence on our policy and has asked if we want it. So the premium to do so is $2,938
For all of our
For how
buildings?
long?
for all of
For a year or for
for the year.
For the year?
Does that need to be agended more formally
Yeah,
than?
probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's
But
a,
if there's no,
there's a map that you can look up, properties that do we know that
all of our buildings do not, some are.
You're gonna go about 3 miles every direction of that map and you'll cover it.
Yes, we will agenda that for discussion at the next meeting. Okay, thank you, Ms. Ripley. Mr. Urvis.
I just have a question. I guess Saturday I received this Greater Egyptian meeting agenda. It's actually tonight, and there's a new business approval of Simpo study contract for downtown Murphysboro. Does anyone know what that is?
Well, the Southern Illinois, SIMPO is the Southern Illinois Metropolitan Planning Organization, and I know that they are working with Murphysboro Main Street to, I think, do some preliminary planning. It's not a cost basis thing. So when it says downtown Murphysboro study, although I was aware of it, it wasn't on any allocation of city funds.
It's a grant that they have to do that study.
Okay. Yes, that is right.
All right, thank you. Carol, thank you for the goodies.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
you're welcome.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anything else, Mr.? All right, Mr. Brett?
As needed.
I don't really have anything. I'd like to thank one of the owners of Kincaid Marina for joining us this evening. You can stand up and on, if you tell them what your name is, that'd be good.
My name is Alden Cohen. I'm just simply Lovely Cohen. I'm trying to be more part of this community, and I appreciate the welcome.
We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
They're doing a great job out there at the lake. Everybody can see a big difference. They
Oh,
make
yeah.
a
Yeah, I've
tremendous
heard
difference.
Absolutely.
They're great
Thank you.
hamburgers, huge.
Great hamburgers.
They say that they're huge, really. My son told me, Mom, I'm like, no, okay. Yeah. And a reasonable price.
Anything else, Mr. Brett?
That'd be all.
Okay. Mr. Bastian?
Yeah, I would like to also thank Tim and CJ and the workers for this past weekend. You worked really hard getting all the lines cleared and the water
Oh, yeah.
taken care of. I know you helped me out and my neighbors tremendously, and thank you.
Appreciate it, I'll pass it on.
All right. Ms. Campos?
No, thank you very much. Happy New Year, everybody. Blessed to have wonderful departments here. And then, nothing.
All
But
right.
I will not go quiet.
Mr. Pittman?
I'd just like to say, marijuana's been legal for 14 days now. I don't think the Stevens have burnt Anna or Marion or Harrisburg to the ground yet. They've got a lot of sales tax from it, so.
Yeah, you're right, you're right.
I agree with Alderman.
They did say
I agree with
that,
you.
they did say that the visits to the emergency room have gone up.
I'm not
Nice
taking-
gig.
Since the
Disagree with
legalization.
you, but nice gig.
Yeah, that's what they say.
There is a huge black market now because of the taxes.
All right, that is our council member request, so I'll go to the department head requests. Maybe. Mr. Heller?
Just one item, the railroad is ready to get our issue on South 23rd Street, from Logan Street South, dissolved. I don't know if you remember, partway through our lawsuit, we found out the railroad didn't actually own what we're in conflict with, and that's Southern FS owns that, and that's kind of just sitting there waiting for us to get this done. Our deal is, I believe our deal is $16,000 we pay, less about $41 or $200 was the amount for the fencing. We have to put the fencing up, we have to pull up that whatever bit of blacktop there is out there that's gonna be on the railroad property and grade that back off, and then we have to put that fence up. They're ready to close that deal now, so Darren, we need to get with you and get you in touch with the railroad, because you have to talk to the right guy at the railroad, and you have to do the right thing the way the railroad guy wants you to do the right thing, and then we can put the fence up. So, we have already agreed to that settlement. I have the deed now, it's signed. I wanna get the fence lined out with them before we close that up. We don't wanna close that up without getting the fence, make sure we got the fence right. That's what we are.
Well, thanks.
It is.
One down.
I don't know what else to say.
We're
Whatever would
speechless.
come to me.
I didn't bother you with the, effort that they made to put the, Bemis indemnity clauses against us. They, at the last minute, in the deed they sent, had us indemnifying them from beginning of time for all their environmental problems. So I had to explain to them how that came out with Bemis, and they actually backed up fairly quickly on that one. I didn't even bring it up because I knew you weren't gonna go for that one.
Well, I want to declare victory on it, just honestly.
Yeah, really.
Go right ahead, and we're not
I don't know
gonna
if it's, I would have rather took them all the way to court and won there, but that's not sensible, so,
I absolutely cannot believe they backed down on it.
no.
Well, they knew that, but that was, I don't know why they tried to even do that last move.
Railroad.
All right.
Oh, we still on it.
That's what they do.
Same time, get this put away, and we go to work on the railroad, or on the culvert under the railroad track.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't declare victory, yeah, we got a 96-inch pipe to go underneath there, so,
How big?
probably about 8-foot diameter.
Only 8 foot.
All right, well,
We got a bunch of 8-foot culverts.
you have anything else, Mr. Heller? Ms. McComb?
No, I'm nothing.
All right. Mr. Evans?
Nothing.
Mr. Sheffer?
I have nothing.
Chief McBride?
Nothing, sir.
Chief Ellemeyer?
Nothing.
Mr. Van Waring?
Nothing.
Mr. Kennedy?
Nothing.
Mr. Mills?
Nothing.
Mr. Lee? Mr. Gladson? My former Chief Bach?
About the solid.
Ms. Molly?
Nothing.
All right. I think that's, everything we've got. We do have an executive session. I apologize for that, but, I'd call a 5-minute recess at this time and then we'll come back and, deal with that executive